It's always been a great community. It's still a great community because it's populated by great people in the community who love Atlanta. This is National Night Out, and we're pleased to be here in the Collier Heights, historic Collier Heights community. So we've got representatives from all of our public safety agencies here, APD, AFRD, the court system are here at this time, and we're having a cookout, but it's bigger than that. We are reclaiming the streets for the community, from the criminals. You know, you can't terrorize us anymore. You can't victimize us anymore.
We have to be intentional about rebuilding relationship between community and our police. And I think it's not just about building the relationship, but reinstilling trust back in our communities. And especially at a time where crime is at its highest we've seen in this nation, I think it's even more important that we're working collaboratively with our local police officers and our community members to help mitigate the continued rise in crime.
Anytime that a community comes together, it builds a stronger city. When neighbors talk to each other, when they talk to their elected officials, and they talk to their firefighters and police officers, it makes for a really strong community, and that's what we want to see across the city. So tonight is proof of that all of our neighborhoods are strong and vibrant, and together we can make our city safe.
It's an opportunity for them to get close up to the residents and just really show that they're human beings. You know, police officers are human beings just like anybody else. They've got feelings, and so the police love doing this. This is their time where they get an opportunity to really come together and don't have to write reports and can really talk on the same level as the citizens.
Thank you all so much.
At the heart of National Night Out, safer and stronger communities happen when we're connected. And for 17 years, Midtown Neighborhood Association has been hosting this event. Even the rain didn't keep people away. I think it speaks to the sense of community here that exists. The city's going through a challenging time right now, and connectedness and community is even more important than it has been over the last several years.
We are here because we are very encouraged, and we want our neighbors to do Citizens on Patrol, look out for one another during this crime wave here in Northwest Atlanta.
And when we talk about crime, it's more than just our police officers who, of course, put their lives on the line every day and night for us, but we have to have strong communities and strong community policing where the people know the officers and the officers know the people in the communities, and we can work together to drive out crime from our neighborhoods.
I just got through with a conversation with the Atlanta Police Department and the community, asking questions about crime and how we can make a difference. And I'm very excited about the enthusiasm from the neighborhood folks.
You see something, you what? Say something. We need to fight this crime. That's why I'm glad to see these officers out here.
This is the neighborhood that I live in, and these beautiful homes have beautiful neighbors, and they're all here to talk about public safety and to see each other. Always remember to be safe and to look out for your fellow man and take care of your police officers as they take care of us.
Historic Collier Heights neighborhood happens to be my neighborhood, and so this is always my last best stop. The rain didn't stop them. They're out here to fellowship, to meet their neighbors, to have fun with their neighbors, but also to keep cognizant and remember about public safety. Our fire department and police department always come out so the community can say thank you to them for all the great work that they do.
Today, this is a service project in the Bush Mountain community, and we are on the Atlanta Black Crackers practice field, and sometimes they played ball on this field. So they were professional ball players. Many of them went to the major leagues, okay, from right here in the Bush Mountain community. We're refurbishing the ball field here. We've had the family of 2 of the 3 Atlanta Black Crackers that I honored today here. So we had a large group of family members from Charles Ingram and from Preston Ingram. They were just great ball players. It's just so much history here in this city, not only in the district that I represent, but throughout the city of Atlanta. This is just a great opportunity for us to celebrate bygone years, but to remember those that came before us.
The Atlanta City Council approves legislation authorizing an agreement for Cascade Road streetscape improvements and signal installation on behalf of the Department of Transportation for a term of 2 years with a 1-year renewal option in an amount not to exceed approximately $20.9 million. The project includes resurfacing, restriping, traffic communications corridor signal upgrades, bus stop enhancements, streetscapes, extended bike lanes, and pedestrian safety improvements. The Council greenlights legislation urging the Georgia General Assembly to amend state law to add all-terrain vehicles to the list of vehicles requiring registration and licensing. The legislation notes that ATVs have presented a public safety risk within Atlanta and that requiring a driver's license to operate the off-road vehicles would assist in ownership accountability and policing. The Council adopts a resolution requesting the Department of Public Works allow residents to place yard trimmings in plastic bags temporarily until regular and consistent yard trimming collection services are restored. The Council says yes to an ordinance authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $25,000 from the District 12 Carry Forward account to the Atlanta Police Foundation to purchase security cameras for use in the district. The Council approves an ordinance authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $6,500 from the District 12 Carry Forward account to the Atlanta Police Foundation to purchase security cameras for the Pittman Park project. For more recently approved legislation, please visit our website, citycouncil.atlantagA.gov. This has been your Atlanta City Council Legislative Minute.
Councilmember Sharp.
Bluetooth connected.
2 o'clock, and I would like to call the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to order. Ms. Lindo, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair.
All right. We will now, can we go ahead by doing the introduction of the members or roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. We have Councilmember Justin Hiller.
Here.
We have Councilmember Carla Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Amir Faroki.
Here.
Councilmember Cleta Winslow.
Present.
Councilmember Julia Bond.
Here.
Councilmember Andre L. Boone.
Present.
Madam Chair, we do have a member quorum of members of a quorum of members present.
And Ms. Lindo, you can hear me, right? This is Councilmember Winslow.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, we had a problem this morning, so that's why I was just rechecking. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Winslow. All right. So, Ms. Lindo, can you please go ahead and read the remote meeting statement, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Today's Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee meeting will be conducted, as advertised in accordance with Georgia Code Section 50-14-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting conference bridge toll-free by dialing 877-579-6743 and entering conference ID number 831-599-1256. This information was also provided on the Friday, August 6, 2021 public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, the Council's homepage, at citycouncil.atlanta.ga.gov, Facebook and Twitter pages at ATL Council, and the Council's YouTube channel. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council website on the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee presentations page. Today's meeting agenda was published and made available on Saturday, August 7th, via the city's website at atlantacitygA.iqm2.com. In addition, the public was able to submit comments via voicemail at 404-330-6022 yesterday between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. These comments will be played during the public comment portion of this meeting. All persons present on a remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to please mute your phones and speakers. Meeting participants wishing to speak must be acknowledged by the committee chair. Amendments, substitutes, presentations, and informational documents have been distributed to committee members beforehand. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We will now move to the adoption of the agenda. There's a loud noise in the background here. I don't know who it is, but if you're not talking, could you please mute your phone? If you're not talking, could you please mute your phone? Thank you. So we will now move to the adoption of the agenda. There's going to be a slight change to the agenda. We have a huge amount of public comment today. We have 3 hours and 50 minutes and 24 seconds of public comment. All this public comment is related to legislation for the training academy that is being proposed that we will have come off a poll at the end of our meeting. So what we're going to do, because please, I don't know whose noise is making it. There is someone who does not have their phone on mute, and there's a huge amount of noise that's being made. So please, if you're listening to me, please mute your phone. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take public comment at the very end of the meeting because all of it is pertaining to this particular piece of legislation. We'll hear that before we deliberate on the legislation. So what we're going to do now in terms of the agenda is we're going to step over public comment. We have a approval of the minutes. Then we'll go into presentations. We will actually go through all of our legislative items also. And then at the very end, when there is, when it gets to held items, we'll come back, listen to public comments, and then deliberate on the items that are being left on held. So that is my motion to amend the agenda. Are there any questions, or can I get a second?
Second, Peroki.
All right. There was a motion and a second. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Please vote. Ms. Winslow, are you voting by voice today?
In favor. In favor, I am, yes. Boone is also voice voting. Boone.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Boone, and how do you vote? You voting yes?
Yes.
Are you voting? Okay, so that was Ms. Winslow, Ms. Boone, and who else did I say was who was saying they were voice voting and someone else voice voting? Mr. Bond?
Voting today.
Oh. All right, and that's a yes also?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, that should complete our vote, Ms. Lindo.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's 7 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted as you have revised it.
Okay, thank you. We're now at approval of the minutes. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Boone.
I think Mr. Bond had it first, so I think that was a second by Mr. Bond. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Boone, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Ms. Lindo, let us know when the votes are complete.
Councilmember Peroki, Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Peroki.
So I just picked each other's system. I jumped back on and voted online. So should be.
Yes, Madam Chair. Yeah, the vote is closed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. The meeting minutes have now been approved.
All right, thank you. So we're now going to jump over past public comments and go down to presentation. We don't have any communications. Is that right, Ms. Lindo? No one is waiting for communications. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
All right. So we're now up under presentations, up under item G. Our first presentation will be by our Assistant Chief Todd Coy.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Shepherd and other members of Public Safety. We'll start out by going to the second page or the second slide for the presentation. The second slide shows the COBRA report for 2021. As you all see, the chart shows that violent crime is still our biggest challenge. More specifically, the homicides and the aggravated assaults. We do have our summer plan still in effect. I would like to specifically mention our fugitive team, Apex, and the members of the zones. They have been making some very significant arrests. With those arrests and the proactive activity that those officers and investigators have been making, we can see that the violent crime is starting to go down. However, as I mentioned, it is still our biggest challenge, but because of their activity, the crime is still going down. The 8-week trend shows that 28-day shootings are down by 40%, which is very significant. The number of shooting victims is also down by 37%. And again, that's because of the activity that the men and women of the Atlanta Police Department have been doing has affected this. However, domestic violence is still an issue for us. Domestic violence for the year is up by 59%. One of the things we've done to address this is several weeks ago, Chief Bryant has basically reorganized some of the units within the department, and we have centralized our investigative division. Previously, we had some specialized units for criminal investigation centralized, but each of the zones had an investigative function. We felt that we would be able to get to the core of our issues at a more rapid fashion if we had everything centralized. An example of this would be our domestic violence unit and our aggravated assault unit. So we look to make some good strides in those two areas very shortly. Can you go to slide number 3, please? Slide number 3 is going to show some homicide and narcotics statistics. A reduction of homicides and aggravated assaults is our top priority. We realize that drugs play a key role in this. Our Apex unit is playing a huge role in fighting the drug violence and the drug crimes within the city. There have been several people saying that Atlanta Police does not have a narcotics unit. We do not have a narcotics unit by name, but our Apex unit is doing the work that narcotics would be doing. They are focusing on the drug problem within the city. As you see, narcotics-related homicides for the year, so far it's 6, as opposed to, compared to last year, the 2020, we had 26. So that broke down to basically 3, almost 4 per month, whereas this year it's less than 1 per month. Also, our narcotics warrants, we've already surpassed the amount that was done last year. The Apex team has executed 49 search warrants, and last year it was only 45 for the entire year. So that's an increase that we've done already. And the slide shows some of the drugs and the guns that the Apex unit has been able to recover. Getting these drugs and the guns off of the street is helping us in our fight against violent crime. Can you go to slide number 4, please? Slide number 4 is another showing of all of the weapons that our Apex team is getting. As you're seeing a lot of assault-type weapons, not just handguns, but assault weapons. And that's contributing to a lot of our aggravated assaults. Can you go to slide number 7, please? I'm sorry, go to the next slide, which will say firearms stolen from vehicles. Firearms stolen from vehicles is still very high. So far, we've had over 1,200 weapons stolen from vehicles. The predominant places that this is happening is in our Zone 5 area, which is downtown, and also Zone 2, which is the north end of the city. Zone 5 downtown area has over 490 weapons stolen so far this year. And right behind them is Zone 2, or the north end, which has over 200 weapons stolen. Chief Brian and myself, basically everyone from the police department, continues to implore and plead for people to store their weapons or secure their weapons in the vehicles. And as you see by the graph, we have this happening all over the city. Can you go to the next slide, please? The next slide shows weapons recovered in the city. So far we've had over 1,600 weapons recovered. Our Apex unit, I know I spoke about them earlier with the fight that they're doing with narcotics. Our Apex unit has recovered almost 200 weapons this year. So it's at 195. Right behind them is our Zone 5. Zone 5 is very busy answering calls, but they are very proactive in what they're doing. So the Zone 5, their field investigative team has recovered 85 weapons so far this year. Also in that fight, we have our auto crimes enforcement and our high intensity traffic team and also the Zone 5 Tactical Traffic Team are helping recover weapons in the city of Atlanta. As you see, that's also spread throughout the city. So we're not just concentrating in one spot. We're fighting this battle all over the city. Can you go to the next slide, please? The next slide is going to talk about some of our nuisance properties. This has been a conversation we've had all year. Because of the task force that has been put together in the city between the Atlanta Police Department, the Atlanta Fire Department, the City Solicitor's Office, the State Health Department, and the Department of Revenue and Alcohol and Tobacco, we've been able to make some good strides in that. We've looked at establishments that have an issue with violence, and they're also violating city ordinances and state laws. They're having illegal operating hours, and they're also serving alcohol illegally. 3 of the places that we've had good success with recently is 12 West Peachtree, which is the Brooklyn Kitchen and Lounge, 139 Ralph McGill, which is members only, and also 62 Harwell Road, which is Darren Village. I thought it was important to put these 3 up because constantly what comes up is nightclubs, but Darren Village is an apartment complex. So this also shows that we are not only focusing on nightclubs, we're focusing on any establishment that impacts the quality of life of the citizens of Atlanta. I also want to make special mention for the Brooklyn Lounge or Brooklyn Kitchen and Lounge. We had the certificate of occupancy revoked, and there were some other stipulations that they had to follow. They did not follow those stipulations, so we asked the health department to come in and help us, and the health department revoked the food permit from the Brooklyn Lounge. So now the Brooklyn Lounge is not open for business at all because they violated they were in contempt of the order from the court, and they also violated several city ordinances and state laws, so they're no longer open for business. So we're still working on members only in Darren Village. Darren Village right now is in a contempt of the order from the court also, and we're working on several things to get them up to par, and those could be, an example of those would be having a 24-hour security, fixing up vacant buildings in that complex. So I just wanted to show that to let everyone know that the Atlanta Police Department, along with some other entities around the state and the city, are working to fight that problem. Can you go to the last slide, please, which is street racing? Street racing is something that we've talked about all year also. Street racing, it's at a 13-month low, and that's in large because of the partnership we've had with Georgia State Patrol, Fulton County Sheriff's Office, DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, and DeKalb County PD, and also South Fulton PD. We've collaborated even with outside agencies such as the Detroit Police Department, where we share information and find out when people are coming down to Atlanta to hold some problematic events. And as you all see, so far for the month of August, we've had a very low number of calls for service. And also July was very low. So we think we're in a good space, and we want to continue to be in a good space. And that is it for my presentation, and I will be ready to answer any questions that anyone has. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from my colleagues?
Yes.
Questions? Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Deputy Chief Court, I don't know if it's you, but our chair was told at our council meeting that we'd have an update on the collaboration between APD and the Atlanta Parks and Recreation on the, I guess, I don't want to say retired officers, but the reserves officers, of course, serving as security for our park. Are you the person that's going to give the update today, or is it someone else?
Councilmember Baum, thank you for that question. We have Deputy Chief Shearbaum on the line also. He's ready to give a briefing on that proposal. So we wanted to keep that separate from the bi-weekly crime report. So we are prepared to answer those questions.
Okay, well, I'll ask you a question about your report. You mentioned that you all had, I guess, confiscated some of these stolen guns. In what way have you all done that? Just in the arrest of, obviously, of those who might be in possession of them, or how is that working?
It's been on arrest, on traffic stops, on search warrants. That's how we've recovered the majority of those weapons. Now,
is they still? I know a while ago they used to be engaged in roadblocks. I guess, but people in the community don't those because they get caught up in them. Are you all doing any of that on your traffic stops, or is this kind of car-to-car traffic stops that you're talking about?
This is just car-to-car. No, we have not had any roadblock. It's just traffic stops, various violations that the officers see when they're patrolling in the city. And as I mentioned, search warrants also.
Okay. Now on the violent crimes being down, that's good news. But what resources is APD making available, or how are you all handling a lot of this domestic violence? Because, as we seem to be falling backward in the pandemic, people are going to be probably more restricted in their homes. What type of partnership do you all engage in to help someone who might be in a domestic violence kind of situation?
Well, we work with the solicitor's office. We work with the DeKalb County District Attorney's office. We work with Brenda Muhammad and her team in offering services to the victims of the domestic violence. So we realize that when these incidents happen, especially for domestic violence, that it has a high probability of a repeat incident of occurring. So we are trying to get other entities to help us in educating our victims, educating them and getting them other resources to help them, even being where they may need to get out of that situation or they may need to get out of that residence. So those are the kind of resources that are being helped. We realize that the Atlanta Police Department cannot be the only resource involved in this problem. So we're reaching out to anybody and everybody that can give some type of resources to our victims.
Have you all had any engagement, or has PAD been involved at all? I mean, it seems like they're there to prevent people from being arrested if there's some type of emotional crisis in the home. Have they been engaged at all?
PAD, or pre-arrest diversion, helps us, but they are not a prominent resource when it comes to domestic violence. They do help us with other situations, but I would not necessarily say they are very prominent when it comes to domestic violence. It would, as I stated, it would be Ms. Muhammad and her team with the victim witness associates that help us. They help us with all domestic violence, all aggravated assaults, homicides. They are a very integral part of our team.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Deputy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. I'm going to come back to your questions, but I got one for in reference to your legislation on the off-duty police officers. So we'll get Mr. Shearbaum to answer that question in a few moments. But Assistant Chief Court, when you talk about the nuisance property, you gave us a couple of them that, has been high on your list. But there are some other ones that I know there were some in particular in my district, or one or two in my district, that are still being investigated and in terms of status. And so how do we, in terms of your nuisance program, how are you continuously updating the council members on where we are in terms of these programs? And who in particular should I call in terms of the nuisance properties that are in our communities that is on your list? Who's over that program?
It is a collaborative effort. We have Chief Peak and Chief Hampton. It comes out of their shops because Deputy Chief Hampton is over our Criminal Investigations Division, and Chief Peak, of course, is over our field operations. So it's a collaborative effort with them, and also Erica Smith from the City Solicitor's Office. We constantly upgrade that list and visit those locations on a consistent basis. If you need an update, you can reach out to me, and I can get you the update on the specific properties you're asking about.
I have two in my community that I need an update on. I won't name them on here, but I have two, so I'll call you about those, and we can get an update. But I think it's important for council members who they know you all sent us this nuisance list, but just like you give updates on what's happening every other week, it may be great if you can say, here's where we are with this, we close this out, here's the issue, so that people will know, council members will know what's going on with those nuisance properties. Have y'all resolved the issues? Is it still outstanding? What's going on with it? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So just my suggestion is you give maybe an updated report in another maybe next week or the next couple of weeks in terms of what's happening with nuisance properties. Okay?
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. So the second thing, going back to Mr. Bond's question in reference to...
Madam Chair, I have questions as well, general questions for Chief Court.
Okay.
Councilmember Hillis.
Okay, I'll let you ask your questions, and then we have Chief Shearbaum to come on. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Chief Court, I have a few questions for you. One, first and foremost, regarding the missing girl, Caitlin Winchester from North Atlanta High School. Who's the lead agency on that? And if it's not APD, then how is APD involved in helping with this?
The Atlanta Police Department is the lead agency on that, and that would be our missing persons unit.
And is there currently any awards being offered for information that will lead to her finding? There's one question. And two, are there any substantive updates since this was, I guess, last Thursday when this occurred?
I don't have specifically how much the award is. Of course, we constantly take information from our Crime Stoppers, and if anyone wants to call in to our homicide missing persons unit, they can call into that number. And at the moment, there is nothing that I would want to speak on this forum on the public safety. But we can talk about it later. But at this time, there's no information that I have to give out at this time.
Understood. On another subject, looking at the COBRA report, you provided a clip of it. And it is, as you mentioned, good to see the homicide numbers coming down. Two questions I have regarding the stats. One is, now that homicides have come down, it looks like there's been still a large increase in rates so far this year. What do you believe is accounting for that, and how do we combat that?
For the rapes, that is still a disturbing trend that is happening. It's no consolation that compared to 2019, the numbers are down. We found that a large percentage of the rapes are acquainted. Hello? A large percentage of the rapes are acquaintances. We try to educate the public as often as we can. There's no set trend that we have been able to identify on why it is happening. As I mentioned, it is a disturbing trend, but we have not been able to find any commonalities other than they are acquaintances.
Gotcha. Second question in regards to the COBRA report. When you look at our total Part 1 offenses this year versus the charges or warrants, I mean, our total crime, at least this is the week 30 that I'm looking at, is up 11%, yet charges and warrants are down 27% in the opposite direction. What accounts for that? And, do you believe that our the number of resources we have that is way down as well is accounting for that number? And how are we going to address that?
Well, as far as the numbers being down, I attribute that to we are more target specific in what our officers and investigators are doing. So we are not just out arresting large quantities of people for various charges. We're very specific in who we target, who we go after. That's evidenced by, I'll use the Apex again. Apex is more target specific. Instead of hitting street corners, they are focusing on the houses or apartments that are putting out a large number of drugs. So that's an example of how we are more target specific in what we are doing. So yes, the numbers are down, but we feel as we are getting the worst of the worst off the street. And that could also be attributed to our Phoenix initiative that we've gone into partnership with the FBI and Fulton County Sheriffs and some other entities, where we are focusing on the worst violent offenders. So that's one reason why the numbers are down, but we feel like we are getting more bang for the buck in getting the most violent people off of the street. Yes, our resources are down because, as everyone knows, the number of officers are down, but our officers are still giving 110% every day. So they are out there working their butts off trying to fight this crime. So yes, the numbers of the officers are down, but they're still giving outstanding effort with their proactiveness and also the people they arrest. That could also be another example of why the numbers of arrests are down, because our officers are being more proactive. And being more proactive, they are able to prevent some crimes, as before people would just be out doing whatever. Another example of why the numbers are down is the nuisance properties. As everyone knows, at the beginning of the year, we had a lot of violence happening at nightclubs because Atlanta was basically the only city that was open in the Southeast. Whereas now we've shown an example that the city of Atlanta is not going to accept the foolishness that's happening at the nightclubs. So we're closing down clubs. We're issuing violations at these clubs. So those numbers are going down. So although the numbers are up, we've made a big stride in getting people off the street that are committing the violent crime.
Thank you for that. I have two more quick questions. One is, here recently, two officers, I believe only one was from APD, another one was another metro jurisdiction, had firearms stolen from their personal vehicles. Do you believe that officers are being targeted in their personal vehicles for being targeted by these thieves in their personal vehicles? And what are you advising officers to do to secure their firearms?
Well, at this point, we don't have any evidence to indicate that the officers' vehicles are being targeted. However, for the Atlanta Police Department, we implore our officers, and we have standard operating procedures that our officers, if they leave a weapon in the car, that they are supposed to secure it in that vehicle. So, no, I do not have any information that officers' vehicles are being targeted. But yes, we talk to our officers and we train our officers to secure their weapons in the car if they have to leave a weapon in the car.
Thank you for that. The last question is, I know you detailed the initiatives being taken against these troublesome clubs. There was another incident this weekend at Hyde Kitchen and Cocktails in Buckhead. Have they had an investigation? Do they have an open investigation? And where are you all with any particular action against that establishment?
At this point, it would be very premature for me to speak on any investigations or actions we have against that establishment. So we can give you an update later. I don't believe this is the proper forum to talk about any investigations we may have against that establishment. But any place that has been problematic in the city, you can be assured that the Atlanta Police Department and the other entities that I had named are looking at those establishments.
Thank you. And so I believe that's two things. I need to get updates either from you or someone else offline. And we're going to have quite a lengthy meeting today. But if you would, you or one of the deputy chiefs reach out and give me those updates, I would greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief, for the updates, and thank you, Chairwoman Shepherd. I did want to go ahead and put in a request. I know they're not on the agenda, but I do have a few questions for our fire chief if he's on at whatever time you deem appropriate, Chairwoman Shepherd.
Okay. It's not in reference to any legislation today, but it's just questions for our fire chief?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm not sure. Ms. Lindo, can you find out if our fire chief is on today? I'm not sure if he was here, if we wasn't prepared, but can you let me know, Ms. Lindo, and I'll get back with you, Mr. Hillis, okay?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Mr. Hillis, I'll get back with you. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and discuss Mr. Bond's legislation. We also have Commissioner Doggle here from the Parks Department and Deputy Chief Shearbaum to discuss his legislation and to give an update on the status of where we are at this point. So if Mr. Shearbaum and Commissioner Dargo are in, we'll give the floor to you. Are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Deputy Chief Shearbaum. In response, yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Councilmember Bond, in response to your inquiry, to give you an update on our review of the feasibility of a recapture for Park Patrol, we started by reviewing those positions that were currently in recapture to see if we could have the potential of transferring any of those officers to a Park Patrol. We reviewed all 37 of those and did not find any that would be able at this time to be transferred because of the unique skill set that they're currently holding. We then conducted, and this is still ongoing because we're having to try to reach out to everyone almost individually, reach out to those at the rank of lieutenant and below who retired during the last 3 years to determine their interest in returning into a recapture position. At this time, we've only had 3 individuals indicate their interest to recapturing in that capacity. We moved beyond that to reviewing everyone currently in our retired reserve program who would have interest in patrolling parks under a potential extra job structure, given the low numbers that we received of interest in the recapture. At this time, we currently have 19 individuals who have expressed interest in operating as a park patrol unit under an extra job structure from our retired reserve. We are continuing to reach out to those individuals, and we're also looking for anyone that may express their desire to retire this year to assess their interest in serving in that capacity.
Thank you. Mr. Bond, I'm going to jump in and ask a question, then and I'll let you give it back to you. So, of those 19, are any of have y'all done an assessment of where would you need these officers, and how many parks we have, and where is the highest need? And then, Mr. Bond, I'm sorry, I have to ask that question, but then I'll give it back to you.
Certainly, ma'am. Our tracking of calls for service and crime reports throughout the city is an ongoing effort that occurs every day. We provided information to our unit commanders who currently provide coverage of the parks. As you know, there are 370 parks, green spaces within the city. 96 of those are community, neighborhood, or regional parks. And we have been reviewing those and determine if we look at the top 20 that would fit into that category, they are spread pretty well evenly across the 6 patrol zones. And so we would have the ability to deploy any additional resources to supplement the police units already assigned and working in park areas to support those both in time of day, time of week, and the geography that they should be deployed in.
I'll give it to Mr. Bond. Then I'll come back and ask a couple more questions. But Mr. Bond, do you want to jump in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Deputy Chief Sheriff Bond, for that update. I'm very interested in the, 19 so individuals that can be deployed. How quickly could you deploy these individuals on site to create a presence in our parks?
So in addition to identifying individuals that would be interested, we would also have to identify vehicles for deployment, infrastructure for support by supervisory, as well as funding to be able to cover the extra job expenses for those officers.
And how much more time do you think you need to identify those resources?
We're in active conversation now with Parks and Recreation. Once that more information is made available on that, we'd hope to have an update at the next PSLA of where if we've identified those resources that would be needed for a park patrol by the next PSLA.
Well, I guess if Commissioner Dargle is he's on the call.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Just an update from Parks and Recreation. The Atlanta Police Department's recapture program and the retired program is not the catch-all for safety and security of our parks and recreation facilities. Since the introduction of this legislation, we have been working both with the administration and APD, looking at building a comprehensive general security plan, addressing parks and recreation areas, buildings, and facilities to include things such as police patrolling, use of security forces, the VIC camera systems, lighting, and landscaping. Currently, we will continue implementing already identified security measures, which includes implementing safety and security measures at our pools and other sites, continue installing cameras at new parks such as Cook Park and Westside Park and the Bell Line, continue fitting and upgrading cameras at our rec centers, reviewing, as Chief Shearbaum mentioned, reviewing ongoing APD crime data for areas within and around parks and recreation centers, improve our relationship and coordination with APD for the VIC-enabled cameras in high-priority park areas, and some in-service training between APD and DPR staff to ensure that they're fully prepared to respond to law enforcement incidents. We are partnering with APD for a three-phase approach to implementing this Parks and Recreation Security Plan. We hope to be able to continue to provide you updates over the next 3 to 6 months as we progress in developing this security plan.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for that. But I guess I was trying to follow up on the point that Deputy Chief Sherbaum made about, I guess, getting the resources from Parks and Rec, I guess, to financially support what was it, Deputy Chief Sherbaum, the equipment, the cost, and the cost for the personnel to be in the parks. That's the point you made. You were waiting on. Was that clear on that?
Councilmember Bond, that is part of our feasibility study. In addition to identifying personnel, there would have to be resource allocations to fund those individuals, as well as vehicles and supervisory support for them.
Right, and you mentioned park.
Part of the assessment would include us being in discussion with parks to determine if there is any ability for them to support that effort.
Okay. Yes, Dargle, I guess I'm trying to get an answer from you as to not the parks is in that position, or does the council need to dig to find the funding? Because I believe that, I don't want to speak for my other colleagues, but I believe the situation is uttermost at the minds of our citizens, and I believe that we can find the funding if we need to.
Yeah. Again, if we're going to go, that's just one approach to our safety and security plan. And we hope by the end of September that we would finish up the initial evaluation of additional security measures and those costs associated with it. Right now, Parks and Recreation, we're not budgeted for that, so that's something that we would have to work through with administration and other resources and finance and budget to figure that out, what those costs would be and how much we can afford.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward, I guess, to the conclusion of that, as those who are who attempt to enjoy our parks are as well. I guess the quicker it can be done, obviously, the better it is for everybody. But shifting back to Deputy Chief Sherbaum, given the fact that a lot of it would be the preference, I believe, of everyone to have either retired or extra duty APD officers serving in this capacity, though the legislation doesn't specify going beyond that. Is there the potential to, I guess, invite in or recruit from those jurisdictions that have police authority in Atlanta to supply some potential positions?
Councilmember Bond, the police department is always looking at the most effective way to fight crime, be it in parks or our neighborhoods. I can tell you each of the zones weekly commits resources to the parks. That is supplemented as well as by our mounted patrol, our PATH force, as well as our HOPE team and the animal cruelty unit, which has been deployed in the area. We're also using our air units to ensure that we spend time over the parks. And so we are maximizing our resources in there to support field operations. At times where a collaboration is viable, be it within our university police or metropolitan police, we always will activate those collaborations to deploy crime-fighting resources.
No, I guess what I was asking is that to stand up an individual in a park, like the 19 that you found who were interested, is it possible that these positions could be offered to, depending if the funding is there, obviously, to a Fulton County deputy or a state patrol officer that also has jurisdiction within it to have policing power, not pulling from those who are already assigned to regular duties or regular departments within APD, because the intention of the legislation is to have a person, an individual in the park that, presumably wouldn't be pulled to do regular duty within the regular command structure of APD, that there'd always be a presence in the park of a law enforcement officer.
Yes, Councilmember Bob, we're always willing to look at any model for effective crime fighting. That one in particularly, we have not at this time reviewed, but we will review it if we find that we do not meet our objectives through the personnel resources that we presently have available to us.
Okay, that'll be fine. So you all believe that by the end of September, you would have finalized at least this point. I know the Commissioner Dargo talked about an overarching kind of crime fighting initiative, but on this specific piece, you'll have some recommendations back to us at the end of September.
Yes, sir. We anticipate having a full assessment done by that period of time, where we can certainly speak more clearly on the feasibility.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the update, because given the unfortunate incidents that have occurred within the last 3 weeks, where we've had some loss of life in our parks, this is top of mind on people as I move around the city. And it doesn't matter what part of town that I'm in. Our park, I was out in our park over the weekend, and they're still in high demand. Piedmont Park is still full of people. People are still in our park, even though some of the pools are closed. And so, but people are still concerned about, having a police presence there. So I appreciate this update, and I will yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. So I'm going to go back and ask a couple more questions as we talk about this assessment, Commissioner Dargo and Deputy Chief Shibam. You said that you all had 19 interested and maybe a couple, 3 more interested in another entity. So you're talking about 21 or 22 employees. So when we do this assessment in terms of looking at how many people we will need, are we talking about all parks, or as you all are doing the assessment, or are you looking at calls for service or crime that's happening in every park across the city, or is it just particular parks that we're looking at in terms of assessment? Because if you're talking about 22 officers, and then when we're talking about the hours, are we talking about the hours in the morning? Are we talking about until they close at 11 o'clock at night when our parks close? That's not, how do you even begin to look at spreading those officers around those variables? And, Mr. Bond had a good question when he was asking about other officers. Can we hire other officers? And, of course, the funding to go with that, because even with what you seem to have now, it's about maybe 22 officers. How do you even divide them? And we have 370-something parks across the city of Atlanta. Are we talking about putting them in every park? Or are we only talking about putting them at the parks that we know that there's some huge activities that may warrant that as you're doing your assessment? Can y'all tell me how y'all even looking at that?
Yeah, that's something obviously based on the crime data that APD can assess, and then look at initial recommendations for security measures, including which parks and facilities most require additional security measures. So not only assessing the sworn, the roles and responsibilities, but also the volume at each one of the parks, and which parks and buildings and facilities have the highest crime rate, and tackling it that way based on facts instead of trying to capture all 370 areas.
Mm-hmm. So that's good. I'm hoping that when y'all come back, y'all can talk about that. And it's interesting to see what else y'all can do in terms of other officers, because again, we know for a fact that we're short officers across the city just in terms of calls for service on the street. So how do we balance this out? The other thing is, Commissioner Dawson, and you all can help me. Right now, like, so we was over at the park, Anderson Park, and I heard, and I'm just clarifying me that the lifeguards are saying that they want to make sure there's security at all pools. So have y'all hired officers at all pools where we have pools now in terms of lifeguards? I mean, around the pools that are really asking for that. Where are we with that now in terms of the pools?
Yes, we have both security forces that's provided by the contract, the management contract, as well as APD officers located at the 4 remaining pools that we've got open for the rest of the season.
And how many pools is that again, Commissioner Dargle?
We have 4 right now that are open.
Yeah, 4 pools that are publicly open, like a Piedmont Park, a Grant Park, Anderson Park.
Piedmont Park is operated by the Conservancy there, so they are open.
Okay, so what parks do we have that are huge parks that are open?
Right now, we've got Johnny White, Maddox Park, Grant Park, and Pittman Park that we manage through American Pool that are opened right now, and we've got security protocols in place, including a bag check.
Okay, and those securities
as well as they be assigned to at each one of those 4 pools.
Okay, so we have some private security at these pools right now because we had to do something. So I just want to understand where we are in terms of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in addition to the security, we've got APD officers there as well.
Okay, and the AP officers are at pools. They're also at rec centers. Is that some rec centers? Not all the rec centers, but some rec centers?
Right now, the rec centers are not open to the public. We did that with our camp best friends.
Okay, that's right. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Well, thank you. I just want to say, in today's legislation, I also have introduced some legislation that asks for cameras to be put in parks for you all to actually come back, the commissioners of parks, the police department, and I've also even talked to the Atlanta Police Foundation asking that we do an assessment of cameras where we can put the VIC camera system into our parks to do an assessment of if we can't have police officers or we can do a combination of both where we can have VIC cameras, and you mentioned that earlier, the VIC cameras as well as also the police officers to look at crime in our parks, in parking lots, and having our cameras places where we know that there's crime that's going on, having cameras installed in certain areas. I know that there's a couple parks in my district that I'm actually taking some of my own money to having cameras installed. And you know about that, Commissioner Dargle, like Pittman Park, because we got too many problems over there. So I've taken some of my own money to do that. But I'm also at this point, because in light of what's been happening in the last month or so, I think we need to be looking at it holistically across the city in terms of incorporating our camera system, our VIC camera system into our parks also as an added public safety measure. So again, I talked to Chief Bryan about it. He said he's willing to look at an assessment of it, as well as the Atlanta Police Foundation. They said they'll be welcome. They think it's a good idea. So I'm just letting you know also that there's something else I'm going to ask for in terms of looking at what we can do in our parks.
Yeah, that's going to be included along with this recapture program and retard program. They can look at it, like you said, holistically and a comprehensive security plan across the system, which would include the VIC camera systems as well as lighting, landscaping, use of security forces, and also police patrol.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any questions from any of my other colleagues?
Madam Chair, this is Councilmember Boone. I do have one question.
All right. And who's behind Boone who's asking another question? There was somebody else who just spoke up also. My system is kind
of... Chair, this is Deputy Chief Sherbaum. I just had 2 points I wanted to raise when this time is appropriate.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Boone, go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I do have a question for Commissioner Dargle. Have the cameras been installed at the Cascade Nature Preserve at the corner of Beltree Circle and Cascade Road? There were numerous car break-ins and other issues at the Cascade Nature Preserve. Have they been installed?
I know they've been installed. I don't know if they're connected yet to the VIC, but I can get back to you on that. I know that the infrastructure was put in there, and whether or not they're currently, well, I'll follow up with you on that.
Thank you so much, because we are definitely going to need security. We have the Nature Girls, a senior citizen group that exercises and walks every morning, and they do not feel safe. Their cars have been broken into, and we want to make sure that those cameras, and we give them additional security, the Cascade Nursing Preserve. Thank you.
I believe we've installed those. I'll give an update to you offline.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Deputy Chief Siobhan, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Madam Chair, Assistant Chief Court asked me to give an update on the earlier question regarding the missing North Atlanta student. That is actually the lead investigative entity will be the Atlanta Public Schools Police Department. We are supporting them in that effort. We wanted to make sure we had left with that information. And then also, on the question earlier about our present engagement in the park, each day, resources from the zone level and our various units are being deployed in areas in and around the parks. Zone commanders, section commanders look at the events that are occurring. They look at the daily updates on calls for service and crime. And just to give you an insight of our engagement, in the last 43 months, Atlanta police officers have arrested 2,173 individuals within the 96 parks, which encompass the community, neighborhood, and regional parks. Those are arrests in response to 911 calls. Those are arrests in response to proactive patrols, special details that are deployed there. As a former zone commander, each week we ensure that we had officers in our parks that were there both proactively and reactively. So any addition that can be crafted around extra jobs as well as recapture will be in addition to the resources that we currently have deployed and that we will maintain in those spaces. So the weekly and daily engagement is consistent, not just from field operations, but from each of our other divisions and the various resources they can deploy.
Thank you. Hello?
Any other questions?
Yeah, Chairman Shepard, this is Councilmember Winslow. So, and thank you for that in-depth report. So let me just ask this question. And I'm trying to figure out how this action happened so quickly, and perhaps you can let us know, Major Shearbaum. So back in, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago over in Mosley Park, there was some fighting going on between teenagers, one neighborhood versus another neighborhood. And within about 10 days, the city of Atlanta hired some people from the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. Now, I know that was just one incident in terms of a park, but I'm trying to get my head and my heart around, I have a appreciation for what we're trying to do long term and really trying to come up with a overall comprehensive plan. But if an incident happens like it did with this young
Ms. Winslow, you're distorted. I don't know if you're on the speakerphone when you're talking or what, but you're real distorted. I understand what you're saying. Can you put the speaker so that I can just click into the phone?
Okay. Is this better?
No. There's a lot of noise. Try it now.
It's not better?
I don't know. There's an echo in the back of your phone. It's real loud. But go ahead and try to get through. We'll see what we can do. Go ahead.
Okay. Maybe I just shortened my question. In Mosley Park, there was an incident that happened with fights several years ago. The city went on and hired some sheriffs right away. So I'm just trying to find out, is that something that can't be done? It wasn't talked about. It wasn't thought about. Help me. Hello?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you can't understand what I'm saying. Maybe I need to put it in the email.
I think you're breaking up. Yes, that's not
That's okay. I'll send it in the email and try to find out why we couldn't hire some sheriffs right away like we did before.
And I think I heard her question. Her question was that in the past, at most parts, there was something. Miss Winslow, can you mute your phone? You may, there's a phone call, but you may want to mute your phone for a minute. Okay. She's asking is, in the past, they hired sheriffs and things from other departments and other cities and other municipalities. Can we do that the same way? In terms of, I think that's one of the things that Mr. Bond referenced also, in terms of not just hiring attorneys from the city of Atlanta, but looking at other agencies. And she wants to know if we can do something to that, something of that capacity also, as y'all doing an assessment. Can we look at that also? Am I right, Ms. Winslow?
You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct, yes.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Winslow, you may want to start all over again. When we finish this conversation, you may want to hang up the phone and come back in, because something is wrong with your phone. So go ahead, Commissioner Dargle.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely. We can go ahead and look at that. Definitely, that's going to be successful. And then getting back to Cascade Springs, all those cameras that we've installed, as well as some trail cameras, we've got up and running, so they're connected with the VIC system.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you all so much.
No, I don't. Can you hear me now?
It's horrible, Ms. Winslow. It's absolutely horrible.
Okay, never mind. Never mind.
I do have Councilmember Boone has a question too.
Okay, Ms. Boone. Okay. Ms. Boone, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, the one camera that you do have that is already installed, is it able, and this is something that you can get back with me on, is it able to see the parking lot of the Cascade Nature Preserve? I understand there are some limitations with the other cameras. We did hear from the Atlanta Police Foundation, but just trying to figure out, can that one camera see that parking lot? If not, we will make other adjustments, and you can get back with me on that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. If there's no other questions, I want to thank you all. Assistant Chief Coy for coming, Deputy Chief Shearbaum, thank you for being here, and Commissioner Dargle, thank you for your information. We appreciate that, and we look to come back with another report on all of these questions. So we look forward to that. Thank you. We will now move on to our next item up under presentations, and that is the Office of the Public Defender. That is Mr. Kenneth Day, Director and Chief of Public Defender's Office. Mr. Day, are you there? Do we have Mr. John Papa there if Mr. Day is not in? We welcome the Public Defender's Office on the call.
One moment, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, according to our team, Mr. Days is not on the line. So if we want to move on to the next presentation, I will reach out to him.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the Office of City Solicitors, Mr. Lane Carter and Ms. Erica Smith. Are you all there?
Yes.
Madam Chair. This is Raines Carter. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello to all members of the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. I am Raines Carter, City Solicitor, and as always, we are very happy and pleased to be able to present our quarterly report before the committee today. I am joined by Deputy Solicitor Erica Smith, and she is going to go through the presentation for you, and I will remain with you, and I am available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter. This is Erica Smith, Deputy Solicitor. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, Ms. Smith. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Public Safety Committee. I'm Erica D. Smith. I'm Deputy Solicitor in the Office of the City Solicitor. If we could go to page 2, please, of our presentation. The City Solicitor's Office has continued our efforts in all 6 of the police zones by regularly providing training and support to our police officers. Also in this quarter, we have been actively attending the COBRA meetings to give updates on our nuisance properties. And I will talk about the nuisance properties later on in our presentation. But attorneys are assigned to every police zone to build relationships and support with charging decisions, PAT referrals, and preliminary screening. And I want to stress that the preliminary screening of the citations is very important because we need to look at the tickets to make sure that they're legally sufficient, as well as if some of our citations, especially the traffic citations, are eligible for our diversion program. Next slide, please. We've also continued to perform and process record restrictions. Record restrictions, also known as expungements, are very important for people who want to restrict their record from public view. In this quarter, from April 1st to June 30th, we have processed 28 restrictions. Year to date in FY21, we have processed over 89 record restrictions. Slide number 4, please. As a member of the Nuisance Properties Task Force, the Solicitor's Office has worked closely with the administration, APD, fire, buildings, and various other city departments to form bi-weekly meetings to resolve the ongoing nuisance property problem. Our task force is a part of the summer plan from Chief Bryant, and we have collaborated with code enforcement and the law department to actually bring forth 25 initial properties. And as Chief Coit said in his presentation, that listing is expanding. We have successfully obtained a temporary injunction against a business in Superior Court where that particular business is no longer active and functioning. And also, as Chief Coit updated you all on, we have obtained 3 favorable orders in municipal court where the properties were declared nuisance. He spoke about Brooklyn Kitchen and Lounge, which is at 12 West Peachtree, 139 Ralph McGill, which is members only, and 62 Harwell, which is the apartment complex, Darren Village. So we were successful in getting orders on all 3 of those. He also spoke about the complete closing of Brooklyn Kitchen, a part of the order that the judge ordered that they only operate within certain hours. They were not in compliance with doing that, and also they were selling alcohol after hours and doing other activities. And so we were able to revoke their certificate of occupancy as well as revoke their food permit. So that business is completely closed. We have an upcoming hearing that's set for Tuesday, September 14th, where we'll bring another property before the court. Page 5, please. Our code enforcement team out of the Solicitor's Office has performed inspections and issued citations for code violations found on commercial and private property. In this particular quarter, we've had 82 property inspections that were completed with warnings and issued citations where citations were required. In this quarter, page 7, please. In this quarter, the Solicitor's Office has been very active in our community outreach,
as well as with our community prosecution program. Our office had a sponsored signature event on July 29th where we sponsored a backpack giveaway and a community food distribution at Salem Bible Church. We successfully provided over 200 backpacks for back to school, and those backpacks were actually loaded with school supplies as well. And page 8 just gives you some photographs of our signature event of our backpack giveaway and community food distribution. If we could go to page 9, the Solicitor's Office has also partnered with various entities throughout the city of Atlanta for Community Appreciation Day and various food distributions. I'm going to talk more about this particular event, but on June 29th, we were panelists in the Virtual Fathers and Family Law Community Forum. On July 24th, we participated along with Madam Chair with the Virtual Code Enforcement Training Academy. On July 31st, we participated in the Back to School event with Maximum Impact, which is at the C.T. Martin Recreation Center. And on July 31st, we participated with the Atlanta Public Schools Back to School Jam, where we donated over 150 backpacks to Atlanta Public Schools. If we go to page 11, please. Our office was invited to participate in the Virtual Fathers and Family Law Community Forum that was presented by Councilmember Winslow. Our presenters from our office were Warren Atkinson, who's a senior solicitor in our office, Jacob Daughtry, who's also a senior solicitor in our office, Stephon Johnson, and Luther Dennis, as well as the city solicitor, Mr. Carter himself. Our panelists discussed police encounters, what to do when you encounter the police, as well as knowing your rights, prosecution powers. We also discuss our various diversion programs. In our office, we have a traffic diversion program for people who want to divert their traffic offenses, as well as we have our regular criminal diversion program for theft by shoplifting and possession of marijuana charges, which we also discuss the license suspension and possession of marijuana at the community forum. Next slide, please. Tuesday, August 3rd was National Night Out, and we participated in the National Night Out event. And I just want to say it was just so refreshing to see people in person. Some communities I had not seen people for over a year, and it was just wonderful to get out and see our community leaders, to see council members out, as well as everybody else from the various city departments. So it was a good time to be had by all, even though we had to endure the rain, but we got through it and had a wonderful time for National Night Out. At this time, if there's any questions, I can take questions. And Mr. Carter's on the line as well for questions.
Madam Chair, this is Councilmember Boone.
Go ahead, Ms. Boone.
Yes. To Solicitor Carter and Ms. Smith and your entire team, thank you all so much for the big wins that we have experienced over in District 10. The Northwest Atlanta Association is very happy with the Sierra Ridge. That was a crime haven, drug infested apartment complex. Working to get that renovated and remodeled. Had a community celebration with the Stratford Drive community. We want to thank your office, code enforcement, APD, and everyone who has been involved with the rehabilitation of that apartment complex. And also another huge win was Darren Village. Many families have been plagued with just poor living conditions. So thank you all in the courts for pressing forward to assist the quality of life for all community members over in the Darren Village. And another thank you on behalf of the NPUH, the Sitco on Martin Luther King has improved. So again, thank you all so much and your entire teams for the backpack giveaways, the food giveaways, and just being present in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boone.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for your work also. We appreciate you, Mr. Carter and Ms. Smith, for your continued work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, we're going to go back to the Public Defender's Office. Ms. Lindo, have we got any answer as to whether they're here or not?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Kenneth Days and his deputy are on the line.
All right, so
yes.
We're ready for your presentation, Mr. Days. Please come forth and present.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. I am Kenneth Days, the Director and Chief Public Defender of the Office of the Public Defender. Also with me today is our Deputy Director, John Tapia. Today, our presentation is going to focus on some of the work that our office engages in, specifically surrounding immigration and the status of some of the individuals that we encounter in the municipal court. But also, it's sort of going to underscore the fact that as a department, we have become more or less a nationwide leader as a public defender office, in that we have now sort of shifted some of our functions towards a universal representation model, of which our immigration defense unit falls under that. And we also appreciate these public safety presentations because it allows us to dispel some of the misperceptions and misconceptions of what it is that we actually do and what our function is, who we represent. But most importantly, we can use these public forums as an opportunity to kind of highlight the economic and social value that our department presents to the city. If we could move to slide 2, please. Based on our department's capacity in literally doing more than what is required, the Vera Institute of Justice was very generous in offering us funding to create the formal practice area surrounding immigration defense. And so with partnership through the Office of Immigrant Affairs and with the city's current mayoral administration, the Vera's grant of $100,000 was accepted with this council's approval in 2019, and we began at that time to formalize and encompass sort of the steps necessary to move towards this universal representation model in starting this immigration defense unit within our office. Slide 3, please. So essentially, what does that mean? We have now, with that approval, been able to protect our department's attorneys with providing daily advisements for clients that may have an adverse consequence based on their immigration status. And so obviously, as public defenders, we can't choose our clients, but if any client that we have presents any kind of consequence that could ultimately affect their immigration status, the Supreme Court of the United States, under the case Padilla versus Kentucky, Supreme Court has now said that any attorney who represents a client has a legal responsibility of advising that client appropriately of any immigration consequences that they may affect. And so having approved the grant money from Vera Institute of Justice, it really protects our department. Prior to having immigration attorney on board, we were disadvantaged in that any bad advice, so to speak, could result in an adverse consequence to the individual attorney being held responsible for essentially not providing adequate advice. And so now folks that walk into our office with any potential immigration consequences are going through a very comprehensive process and being advised appropriately. But the secondary effect of all this is that it has sort of put our department in the forefront amongst other nationwide public defender offices as far as best practices are concerned. And so now we regularly collaborate with other governmental and non-governmental offices on a statewide and a national level. Slide 4, please. And as you can see from the statistics on this, our impact has been quite substantial. I might add that since 2020, obviously our representation numbers have been reduced because of COVID, but we've still had a significant advisement that has necessitated this work as being mandatory and a critical function of our office. But then there's also the human side of this work. Attorney Hernandez, who is our lead attorney on these efforts, is a frequent invited guest lecturer at Georgia State University School of Law and also Emory Law School. And so with the assistance of our department's client advocates, we've been able to have distribute hundreds of backpacks worth of supplies to individuals that are leaving immigration custody. And so the grant funding from VERA requires that we take at least 10 cases annually to individuals that meet certain specified criteria in assisting them and defending them in deportation proceedings in the immigration court. And that's very convenient for us because the immigration court is conveniently 1 block from our office. So we have really, really good access. Slide 5, please. The immigration and really immigration reform measures and policies surrounding them tend to be somewhat controversial. And as attorneys, specifically as defense attorneys, despite any policy determinants that we may or may not agree with, our priority has to be and also always will remain with the client being first. And because we, again, led this space nationally as a public defender office in directly serving an immigrant population and providing these sort of hands-on services, we've been asked, or we were asked to join a network of experts to draft the best practice proposals to present to the federal administration recently. And so what originated as 10 organizations ultimately became 30 organizations, and much of the national policy decisions that are around this issue now have been in large part crafted by your City of Atlanta Office of the Public Defender. Slide 6, please. Many of you may be aware that the Irwin Detention Center in Osceola, Georgia, was ordered recently to be closed, and that was primarily due to the unauthorized medical procedures that were allegedly being performed on women housed in their facility. And that effort originated with what's known as the Freyhut case as a COVID-19 issue. And that was to provide legal protections to high-risk individuals that were detained in Irwin's facility, and which our office obviously provided a substantial amount of advisement to. In partnering with many well-recognized law schools, our office has been, again, nationally recognized and heralded as a primary source in having that Irwin Detention Center permanently closed. If we can move to slide 7. While the work that we do is necessary to sustain a robust and functional criminal justice system, providing equity on both sides, being prosecution and defense, a lot of times the human component is left out of these equations. And we've, in a very short period of time, had a lot of client stories that make it really easy to engage in this work because you are impacting lives in such a positive and transformational way. And we've got 2 of those examples for you on this slide. The first was one of our clients, Jared, who overstayed his visa and was arrested on a minor criminal charge. But his wife and 3 daughters are all American citizens. But once he was arrested, he was transferred to ICE custody because of immigration issues, where he remained for about 540 days or 18 months, if you will. But again, our grant funding through VERA, our office was able to take his case, and ultimately we were able to secure his release. Now he's a lawful U.S. resident. He's gainfully employed, and most importantly, he is now reunited with his wife and children. Another story that we like to share is that of Nadia, who is a mother of 5, and suffers from previously unrecognized cognitive and psychological disabilities. But our office was able to accept her case, and after some proficient advocacy, we were successful in having her prior criminal conviction vacated. And afterwards, she was released from detention after 9 months being separated from her family and children. And so our office has since that time secured a work permit for her, and her permanent resident status right now is pending, but it looks very promising. And so, many of the barriers that to a lawful status are usually simplistic in nature. It can be something as innocuous as understanding what forms you need to present, or something as simple as having an interpreter at your hearing. And so having legal counsel advise this population now is a fantastic thing that we are doing, and we wanted to highlight that today. So I'll at this time take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. It's great to hear about, what your focus on is immigration. Those last two stories is really powerful. Do my colleagues have questions? Are there any questions from my colleagues? Well, Mr. Day, we appreciate your work and what you all are doing, and all the funding you're getting, and we'll support you. Thank you so much for all y'all do.
Thank you as well.
Thank you. We will now move on to our last presentation, and that is going to be the mayor's office is coming with an report from the Anti-Violence Advisory Council. I've asked our COO, Mr. King, to come and give us an update on that and to give us some information on it. And the item number 5 on the agenda, guys, we're not going to discuss upon the presentation. That is going to be the held legislation that we're going to hold to discuss at the very end. So after this presentation, we'll move through our legislation. But COO, Mr. King, are you there?
Chair Shepard, this is John Keene, Chief Operating Officer. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to present an update related to the Anti-Violence Advisory Council. If we go on to slide 2, I wanted to start and just highlight, overall, as the mayor laid out in her State of the City, and as we discussed during the FY22 budget process, we had 5 top priorities that we were focused on in this fiscal year. And no surprise to you all, reducing crime was the top priority. And so that's the focus for the discussion that I'm going to be talking about today, and the work that we did as we established the Anti-Violence Advisory Council. Slide 3. To start, I wanted to highlight the fact, and Assistant Chief Coit talked about the numbers. We looked at the numbers, obviously, on a daily basis. And as we established the Anti-Violence Advisory Council, that was one of the most critical starting points, was to take a look at where we were at and our key challenges, our key strategies, and take a look at the initiatives and plans that we already had underway. As we've talked about many times in this committee, there are some aspects of our numbers that we feel good about, but the 2 areas where we have concerns really are focused on our homicides and aggravated assaults. And while we've seen progress and trends in the right direction, as Assistant Chief Coit talked about today, they are still elevated and are still our primary focus. We dug into the key challenges associated with our homicides and aggravated assaults. We talked about the key strategies that we are focused on to address violent crime. And then the council spent a lot of time looking at the key initiatives, both those that are led or coordinated by the mayor's office, as well as the actions that are led and coordinated by the Atlanta Police Department. And today I'm going to talk about the findings that the Advisory Council had and their recommendations and what we're doing as next steps to move those forward. On slide 4, you'll see the purpose and criteria for success of the Advisory Council was really to assess our existing efforts related to violence and violence reduction and to suggest additional initiatives or reinforce initiatives that we had already ongoing and really focus in on those violent crime reduction areas, as well as solutions that can be executed by the City of Atlanta and the Police Department or in cooperation with state and or federal governments. And so that's where we focused with the council. On slide 5, you can see the makeup of the Advisory Council. It was a diverse group of stakeholders that brought a diversity of perspectives, including 2 council members, Councilmember Boone and Councilmember Mazakite. And the intention was to bring that diverse group of folks together, as well as bring in some outside experts and outside perspectives to be able to discuss those existing ongoing initiatives, bring in expertise around ideas that we should be further considering. If we move on to slide 6, you'll see that for the Advisory Council, there were 4 primary meetings that covered 4 different topics. The first topic was a discussion related to the current crime data and key challenge areas. The second was a discussion specific to guns, repeat offenders, and nuisance properties. The third focused on youth engagement. The fourth was focused on violence interruption and community policing. From there, we had 2 additional work sessions. One was focused on youth, where we brought a panel together of youth from different parts of the city, working with some of our, key organizations, whether our recreation centers or the PAL program through APD, as well as the At Promise Youth Centers, in order to bring youth and have them provide their perspectives to our Advisory Council so that we could hear some of the progress that was either being made through existing initiatives, challenges of those existing initiatives, or just their perspective on how violence was creating challenges for them and their communities. The last was a work session with an expert who brought data based on evidence-informed approaches to violence reduction. And there's some amazing research that has been done across the United States to look at ways to reduce violence, bringing together enforcement as well as non-enforcement related actions and initiatives. And so this person laid out the data, laid out some of the examples from other cities, provided thoughts and recommendations that the Advisory Council discussed. On slide 7, we start to get into the recommendations from the Advisory Council. So overall, the Advisory Council, after having gone through this process, made the recommendation that we as the city need to further focus some of our resources as well as our efforts and our oversight on imminent violence crime reduction related initiatives based on a strategic framework that targets specific locations and individuals most afflicted by violence. And so that overarching recommendation is a key part of what we embedded in the 3 key recommendations that I'm going to talk about next. On slide 8, you will see the 3 main recommendations that were laid out in the report. And I've provided a link here to the full report for those who haven't seen it. We're certainly happy to share that with the committee. As I mentioned, the overarching framework said that we have to better focus, and we have to better focus on some specific locations, some specific individuals that are most afflicted, And the ways to do that is through these three recommendations. One is to create a dedicated Mayor's Office of Violence Reduction that will help coordinate both the enforcement as well as the non-enforcement aspects of these initiatives and focus them on those locations and on those individuals most afflicted by violence. The second is implementing, expanding, or continuing 9 critical initiatives that they reviewed during the process. And again, focusing those initiatives even further on some specific locations and individuals. This includes some new initiatives related to public awareness as well as community capacity and infrastructure building, expanding and further focusing on initiatives like the violence prevention program work that we have already begun to launch, as well as local security and supplementation work that we have launched, violent repeat offender commission work that has been launched, as well as the enforcement of nuisance properties work that you all have talked quite a bit about. And then continuing key initiatives like hiring 250 additional police officers, expanding the Operation Shield camera network by 250 cameras, and adding 10,000 additional streetlights. Again, all of these prioritizing these key areas. The third was investing $70 million in those 9 critical initiatives, with $50 million coming from public funding and $20 million from philanthropic funding. And I'm going to talk a little bit about in the next slide, as we get into next steps, how we're going through the process to identify the investments. Some of these investments you all already prioritized as part of the FY22 budget. Other investments, we're looking at ways that we need to reprioritize in order to make sure that we make the needed investments, as well as how we can attract other state and federal dollars to leverage against the local dollars that we are investing and attract philanthropic and private funding to these initiatives. If we move on to slide 9, you'll see here the key next step. So the first is continue to aggressively move forward with the actions that were identified to be continued, such as hiring 250 police officers. I could spend a good bit of time talking about the work that has gone into our recruiting efforts in conjunction with APD, and I'm proud of the work that has been done. I'm proud of the fact that in the month of July, we're on track with the numbers that we were targeting to hit for this month, and we look to continue to stay on track throughout the rest of the fiscal year. So we'll continue to focus on our hiring. We'll continue to focus on the expansion of Operation Shield, which also is very much on track. We've already funded over 250 cameras, and we're well underway in terms of actually putting those cameras into place across the city of Atlanta. And we'll continue to work with APD and our communities to make sure that we are prioritizing the right locations for those cameras. And then lastly, adding 10,000 streetlights, which also is underway. We have already begun to add streetlights, and we'll continue to prioritize that. Georgia Tech has helped us, as the Transportation Committee heard, in doing an assessment of the key areas of need. We'll also be layering in the work that we do here specific to our violence reduction efforts in order to further prioritize locations and continue to add streetlights. The second key next step relates to efforts to get the Office of Violence Reduction off the ground, as well as to conduct the analysis that is needed to identify those key locations, key individuals that are most afflicted by violence, and then to finalize key elements of the initiatives that will be invested into those areas. In terms of establishing the office, we've finalized the job description based upon some feedback we got from a national network of other cities that have established offices of violence. They call it different things in different cities. Some call it violence reduction, some call it violence prevention. We have gotten some great guidance from the national network, and we have developed job descriptions, and we're going to be posting positions to get a director level position to really initiate that office. In the meantime, we've got a working group of staff that are helping to get these initiatives off the ground, build out what's needed in terms of the baseline infrastructure for the office, and continue the work that the Advisory Council began. We will be looking to introduce legislation in the near future to add that office to the city code, as well as bringing together some advisory board stakeholders who will help guide us as we continue the work of establishing the office and implementing these initiatives. One key step that I mentioned is this analysis, and APD, when they provide their biweekly updates, many times they will include in their updates for you all maps, and they will show crime data across the city and by geography. We've also begun, as Deputy Chief Shearbaum has mentioned in previous updates, we launched our map on the APD website. It had been down for a period of time, but they have relaunched that, and so anybody can go onto their website and see crime data. That is the baseline component for the analysis, but in addition to that, there's additional data that is included to help determine what are the key locations and individuals we need to be thinking about and focusing on in order to prioritize our resources. That includes data that we get from the hospitals, Grady being a critical partner in that, as well as other data that we can get from the case files. And there are great examples of work that has been done in other cities in order to pull these different data sets together in order to make good decisions as to how to best prioritize resources and reduce violence in the most effective way. The final piece I'll mention, which I teed up a little bit in the previous slide, is identifying the $70 million in funding. We will be working to finalize those funding plans. That includes breaking down the investments that have already been made and leveraging those with reprioritization of resources at the local level, as well as pulling in grants from the federal government and philanthropies in order to ultimately make the necessary investments of $70 million to get these initiatives either underway or to expand upon these initiatives. And so there's been a lot of great work that was done to set the foundation by the Advisory Council, as well as work that had been done before that. We greatly appreciate all the effort that the Advisory Council members put into this, and the recommendations that they have provided, I think, reinforce the fact that we've got a lot of amazing work being done by the police department and others, but it also helps reinforce the fact that we have to be really smart about how we prioritize our resources and how we focus in on the areas and the individuals most afflicted by violence. And so based upon their recommendations, that's what we're planning to do. And so with that, Madam Chair, that concludes the presentation. Certainly happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and up under number 9 presentation, establish the Office of Violence Reduction. So you all are actually talking about hiring someone, a couple of people, or 2 or 3 people to have an Office of Violence Reduction. Where will this be, and how do y'all determine who you're going to hire?
So yes, we are planning to hire. We haven't finalized the full structure for the office yet. We are looking at best practices from other offices around the nation, and looking at the work that was set out by the Advisory Council in terms of what this office will need to be able to accomplish, and again, comparing that to some of the structures that other cities have in place. But we're starting with the hiring of the director, which is obviously a critical position. The intention right now, based upon some of the research that we've done, as well as what has been recommended, is to establish it as a office within the executive offices. And in terms of how to go through the hiring process, the good news is there are some amazing networks of individuals who have experience with this nationwide. So we've created a job posting based upon the best practices we've gotten from other cities and just based upon our own research. And we will post the position, and we will be sharing it with you all and sharing it with other networks in order to try and get as best of a candidate pool as possible so that we can hire the best person possible for this position. You know, ultimately, the leader of the office needs to bring an understanding of how to coordinate and work closely with the Atlanta Police Department, but also bring a very strong understanding of the non-enforcement aspects of this work, how to work closely with the community on violence prevention programs, violence interruption programs that are community-based programs with nonprofits, like the example of the work that's being done in MPUV with Chris 180 and the Annie Casey Foundation. And so it really is that blend of skill set, and we do believe that we'll be able to get some great candidates and go through that selection process to bring on the right person for the director of that office.
So, and that was what I was going to mention too. I have been to the office of, it's called Pure Violence. It's in the Lakewood Heights neighborhood, where they actually, the old Suncrest building was donated for them to create a Pure Violence program over there through the Annie Casey Foundation and Chris 180, and they're leading it. And I sat down with them for about a couple of hours, maybe about a month ago, for them to go over their initiative with me and making me understand how it works. And basically what we're looking at is creating programs where we have social workers and people who, well, not social workers, but people who go out into the community, as opposed to looking at violence from going out with police officers, is that we can begin to have mediators that actually talk to folks in the community when there's a violent situation, to go out and try to calm it down or do something to interact with folks who have problems in the community. And this is a huge and a great initiative. They are just beginning theirs, and based on what I see, what I was told, and I actually talked to some of you all internally, we're contemplating hiring maybe a couple more people, at least one person who will be over this whole violence program. And then, as you say, looking at an office, and I don't know if the office is going to be in the mayor's office or out in the community, like the one that Chris Abrams has is out in the community. And that's establishing something that it would actually be out where people can interact and go to it, as opposed to it being in the mayor's office. And I guess the important thing, too, Mr. King, is interacting with council members, because I know in my communities, and I'm blessed that I have that Promise Center, and, you know, MPUV is actually a part of my community. That's how I got involved with the one in Lakewood. Lakewood Heights is in Lakewood, but Annie Casey has adopted that, and they're actually covering several neighborhoods in my district and Ms. Smith's district also. But how they're doing is actually being out there in the streets. And I was just wondering, in terms of funding, I know you talked about $70 million, but there was a discussion that maybe some money, maybe about $5 million or I don't know how much money is already maybe being contemplated. So we already have funding in place to hire these folks. And I understand you all are on the national search to find somebody who has the skill set, because other cities like New York and Chicago and other people have already looked at this type of program, and I'm excited about it. But I just want to know, you know, the funding is there, and we're going to start it, but are we going to keep it in the mayor's office, or is it going to eventually be a space out in the community somewhere?
Great questions, Councilmember Shepherd, and all great points. So it's a combination of those things. So to your specific question around funding, the $5 million that was prioritized in the American Rescue Plan was specific to expand violence prevention program. And the violence prevention program, which is exactly what you talked about, is the example of what has already been done in the city of Atlanta is the Cure Violence program and MPUV. And so the $5 million is geared towards expanding that type of work into other communities in the city of Atlanta. And that is one of the initiatives that would be under this office. And so the funding has already been dedicated specific to expanding that type of program. And this office would play a critical role in ultimately investing that $5 million in order to identify the community-based organization that will stand up that work and do that work directly in those communities. And so when you think about this office, and again, this is what we've seen in many other cities, this office is going to have several different initiatives that relate to violence reduction. The violence prevention programs is one critical one. It's one that we've already identified funding for. And ultimately, they will make investments in community-based organizations to stand up and execute on this work. And they will be a coordinator amongst those community-based organizations to make sure that, one, some of the methodologies are standardized, as well as their coordination with the city is standardized. And as we evaluate to make sure whether or not these programs are working the way that we had intended, that there's some standardization in terms of how we collect the data. And there's a lot of great work to build upon, as well as there's a lot of opportunity to learn from how other cities have done this.
Well, what as I'm reading through your presentation here, I think what I would like to ask of you, I'm just asking this as Chair of Public Safety and myself as a council member in my district, I think that we are at the beginning of something and looking at what other cities are doing on a national level. That's great in terms of all the crime and the violence and things that are going on. I would like to see if, from the mayor's perspective in the office, that we actually collaborate on this as a city council and to make sure we're involved, because you're talking about public awareness, community capacity engagement, community infrastructure, and no pun intended, but sometimes I think that as a mayor's office, sometimes I feel like we as council members, our feet on the ground, we can tell you where to go, sometimes turn left, turn right. So I would like for us to work on this together as a collaborative and to go into some much more details of the structure and how it's going to work out. So I would like to ask if we could come back and maybe even do a work session or something on it to actually go into the details as we begin to roll this out. Can I ask that of you all?
Happy to. And I'll just highlight a couple things. One is obviously we've been appreciative to have council members engaged in this discussion. And as you and I have talked about before around this, there's a lot of opportunity for continued engagement, especially from the Public Safety Committee and with you as the chair as we move forward. We are early in this. As we get to the point where we're going to be introducing legislation to create the office, I think that's another great opportunity. And we've got some great opportunities here in the near future to share things like the job description, get your feedback and input on that, as well as certainly once we have the job posted, to make sure that you have an opportunity to share it with your network. So I think there's going to be a lot of great opportunity for that continued engagement and collaboration, and we certainly welcome it.
Well, I'd just like to go on record as just saying that I ask you all to come back and give us every step of the way what you're doing, so that we know and that there's a structure of not just having council members. There's nothing wrong with having council members on there, but documentation saying here's our next step, what's going on. And again, this is a way for us to collaborate with our council districts in every way to say, I now get it and I can tap that into my neighborhood or Ms. Bowles' neighborhood or Ms. Winslow neighborhood or Mr. Hillis' neighborhood, and that we actually can see a connection in terms of how this is working. So I'm just asking for a collaboration in terms of that, and asking you all to come back to us and give us, here's the next step, here's where we're going with it. So, but I appreciate the presentation. I think this is the beginning of something. If we can just figure it out all together.
Sounds great.
All right. Any other questions from my colleagues? All right. Thank you so much, Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. We are now moving ahead. It is 3, almost 4. So we're now going to move past our presentations to our consent agenda. And the next thing we have is resolution claims with favorable and unfavorable recommendations. We will start with the favorable claims. That's 1 through 7. And so I'm going to ask for a motion to accept claims that are favorable 1 through 7. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Ms. Lindo, we are ready for the vote.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. Will everyone please vote? Madam Chair, do you want to call the voice vote?
I'm sorry, yes. Ms. Winslow, how are you voting? Ms. Winslow? Ms. Boone? Ms. Boone? Mr. Bond? Can they hear?
I made the motion.
Okay, thank you.
In favor, Winslow.
Okay, Ms. Boone? Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay. All right, Ms. Winslow, mute. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Lindo. I can't see the screen right now. What are the votes?
Madam Chair, I believe, was it Mr. Faroki who was the second, or Mr. Hillis? I think they both all at the same time. I don't know.
This is Faroki. My vote is yay.
Thank you, Mr. Faroki.
This is Smith. I'm knocked out. Yay.
Thank you. I just got back in, Ms. Smith. I understand. Thank you. So this is all of that.
7 yeas, 0 nays, Madam Chair. Those items are favorable.
All right. Thank you. We will now move to items that are unfavorable. Those are items 8 through 48. Unfavorable claims. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the unfavorable claims? Who's that?
Bond.
Okay, Mr. Bond made a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Boone.
Thank you, Ms. Boone. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
One moment, Madam. The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Smith is yay.
All right, Ms. Winslow, how do you vote? Ms. Winslow?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have all the votes now, Ms. Lindo?
Yes, Madam Chair. The vote is closed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. Those items have been adversed.
All right, thank you. Now we're at ordinance for first read. Ms. Lindo, would you sound that, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. That's ordinance 21-0639, an ordinance by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to amend ordinance 21-0163, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on April 19, 2021, and approved by operation of law per the City Charter Section 2-403 on April 28, 2021, authorizing the Chief Procurement Officer or his designee to execute a third amendment to lease agreement with Chester Avenue Lofts, LLC, a Georgia limited liability company, for approximately 3,500 square feet of office space located at 890 Memorial Drive, Southeast, Suite 6, Atlanta, Georgia, 30316, for the Atlanta Police Department Task Force Unit, Mini Precinct, to correct Section 1 of Ordinance 21-0163, authorizing the mayor or her designee to enter into the third amendment to the lease agreement and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We'll just have to read that in. We're now in our regular agenda, ordinance for second read. Ms. Lindo, would you sound item number 2?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is ordinance 21-0476. This is an ordinance by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee, in accordance with Section 2-1163C, Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code, to ratify contract number FC 7623 public record information services with Lexus Risk Solutions Florida, Inc., and services provided during renewal number 1, and to exercise renewal number 1 for a term of 2 years, effective retroactively from October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2021, in an amount not to exceed $212,000 on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department. All costs to be paid from an account listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. I've asked for someone to come on and speak about this. Who did we ask? Because I have a question. Is that
I believe it's Deputy Chief Sherbaum.
Okay. Thank you. Is he there? Mr. Sherbaum?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Deputy Chief Sherbaum.
All right. As I was reading this, I had some questions. Number one is the legislation is actually retroactive back from October of 2019 for LexisNexis through September 30th of 2021, which means that apparently somewhere along the way we dropped the ball because we're trying to go back and actually, so we've been paying for the service and we're just about at the end, so we need to go ahead and pay for it. But what happens now going forward in terms of LexisNexis, the risk solution and public records information? Will we not have to enter into another contract?
Madam Chair, we'll work with yes, ma'am. We'll work with procurement and law to ensure that the proper legislation is in place. We do know there was a request by law for this to be resubmitted because of the expiration date. This is a software that we use for all of our mapping that you see at COBRA, the presentations we provide to this body, as well as our public-facing citizens maps. So it is vital for those missions as well as to our investigating uses. So our request would be to continue to provide the service, which we do utilize.
So, but this service right now is from October, going back from October 2019 through September 30th, which is the end of next month. But we don't seem to have anything in place because we will still continue to be using this service. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. The police department will continue to utilize the services. We obviously defer to procurement and law as far as the time in which the contracts come in place.
So it will end on September 30th, and we will be without a contract again? Will we be without a contract again if it ends on September 30th? And at what point will we go through procurement again to actually ask for, because we don't want to go back to the same thing we're doing now, which we're paying them without a contract. So how do we fix that? Should we not extend this through, or make sure we understand that we're actually working on a contract that is correct? Does that make sense?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I do. We would have to defer Department of Procurement on that. We do work with them, ensuring that they're aware of our needs, our desire to extend the contract. That specific questions, we would defer to procurement on the response.
All right. Well, I'm confused. I would like to ask if someone from procurement or could come and actually speak to this. I just need to get clarity on why we're going through this. It seems like we're kind of going backwards here. I don't get it. So I just need to ask a question in reference to that. I don't know if anybody from procurement is listening or can come and give us the answer to this. I really want to get clarity on this. I see Mr. Hill's hands up. I'm going to come back. Ms. Linda, can we see if we can get somebody from procurement to come and talk to us about this?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll yield to Mr. Hillis until that happens. Mr. Hillis.
Yeah, my hand was up before we got into the second read, so I was just seeking an update as to whether the fire chief, or one of his deputy or assistant chiefs are online.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
So we can address that before we move into public comment.
Okay. All right. Ms. Linda, I don't know if you had time to look into that yet, but could you make sure we do that, or have you had time?
Yes, Madam Chair, I've called and texted and called as assistant. I'm still waiting for a reply.
Okay. All right. I want us to hold this And Ms. Lindo, I know you're wearing 2 or 3 hats, but we need to have somebody from, if anybody from the procurement is on this call, please come forth and answer this before we get to the end of the agenda. I'm going to hold this until somebody can come and give me an answer. Okay? All right, so let's move on to item number 3. Ms. Lindo.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's ordinance 21-0477. This is an ordinance by the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta Police Department to enter into a third amendment to lease agreement with CNN Center Ventures, a partnership between ICC Ventures, Inc., a Georgia corporation, as managing venturer and general partner, and Turner Omni Venture, Inc., a Georgia corporation, as general partner, for approximately 3,895 square feet of office space located in one CNN Center, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303 for the Atlanta Police Department Zone 5 Mobile Precinct, commencing retroactively on March 1st, 2020, and ending on March 1st, 2024, waiving Article 10, Section 2-1546 of the Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, authorizing the expenditure to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
Okay, so Ms. Lindo, is anyone going to speak on this?
I understand, Madam Chair, that it should be Mike Sturgeon should be on the call. One moment.
Okay, thank you.
Or I believe Miss Cheryl Nooks, Madam Chair, may be on the call. We're checking. I think Miss Cheryl Nooks may be on the call.
Is she there?
I understand from staff Miss Nooks is on the call. Yes.
Can we let her talk? Is she unmuted?
Yes, this is Cheryl Nooks with the Department of Asset Management. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're in the real estate division. This ordinance is for the authorization of for the mayor or her designee to enter into the third lease agreement with CNN. The APD currently occupies 3,895 square feet. The second amendment expired February 28, 2020. The owner of the property was proposing to sell and did not want to enter into an agreement at that time when the lease expired. They then contacted us saying that we could enter into a lease agreement. So we presented this agreement retroactively to capture March 1st, 2020. The term will be for 4 years, and it will expire March 1st, 2024.
Okay. You've answered my question. That was what I was trying to figure out, what happened last year. So you've answered my question. Are there any other questions from anyone? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Bond?
So move.
Anyone want to make a second? Ms. Winslow? Ms. Boone?
Second, Winslow.
All right. It's been motion by Mr. Bond, second by Ms. Winslow. We're ready for the vote. Ms. Ringo?
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Boone, how do you vote? Okay, she's in.
The vote is closed, Madam Chair. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. Madam Chair, we do need a motion also to send this item to FEC due to the waiving of the procurement code.
Okay. Mr. Bond made a motion to send it forward to FEC. Is there a second?
Second, Winslow.
Thank you. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be referred.
Okay, thank you so much. We're now moved to item number 4. Ms. Lindo.
Yes, Madam Chair. That's Ordinance 21-0502. That's an ordinance by Councilmember Carlos Smith to amend Chapter 10, Article 2, Section 10-94 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances so as to provide an exemption from the distance requirements to a private residence set forth in Section 10-88A for on-premises consumption for 1 year located on that parcel of land known as 63B Georgia Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia, and for other purposes.
All right.
This is Councilmember Smith. The Summerhill Neighborhood Association, excuse me, they made this request. Their request is attached to the legislation. Therefore, my motion is to approve.
All right. Are there any questions? All right. No questions, Mr. Bond, second. We're ready for the vote. Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
All right. Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
All right.
The vote is closed at 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We're now at item number 5. Could you sound that, Ms. Lindo?
Yes, Madam Chair. That's Ordinance 21-0585. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Carlos Smith waiving certain provisions of Chapter 2, Article 10, Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances in order to authorize the city attorney as a designee of the mayor of the City of Atlanta on behalf of the City of Atlanta Department of Law to execute an agreement with Sullivan Strickler LLC for the provision of legacy data, document production, oath records, and e-discovery support services to the Department of Law and the City of Atlanta in the amount of $1,300,000 for a term of 1 year, which shall be automatically renewable annually, commencing retroactively on February 26, 2020, to ratify the acceptance of services provided from February 26, 2020, through the execution of the agreement authorized hereby, to authorize all contracted work to be charged to and paid from the account listed herein and for other purposes.
This is Smith again.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This company was hired after our cyber attack back in 2018, and they were hired to assist with the recovery of data lost in our cyber attack against the city as a result of this engagement and the recovery of the city's archival data. Sullivan Strickler now has a database which hosts the city's archival data. This provides an efficient means to assist the Department of Law and the City of Atlanta in responding to all open records requests, producing documents for litigation and investigative matters, and capturing images of city devices in support of investigations and onboarding of executive-level city employees. So therefore, my motion is to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bond gave a second. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you.
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. Madam Chair, this is a dual referral, so this will move automatically to FEC.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, also Mr. Martin Clark said that he was on, if I may, Madam Chair, that he was on to discuss the LexisNexis. So
okay,
if we can get him back again. Yes.
Yes. Okay, let's get him back. Mr. Clark?
Greetings and good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Greetings.
So we have legislation.
Hey there, Council Chair. With regards to the LexisNexis paper, it's my understanding that paper was a corrective action piece of legislation to correct a problem with the date on that contract and the renewal. However, with regards to your question of going forward, the Department of Procurement, I don't believe, has received a request for the service going forward from the user agency. I have to confirm that, but again, it's my understanding that we have not received a request for procuring the service going forward.
I'm assuming that we're going to continue to use LexisNexis, so why would we not, if it's going to September, what would happen then in terms of the next steps in terms of the agencies? Do we have to go working without a contract again?
Potentially. Again, as soon as we get a trigger and a request to go forward with that service, going forward, the Department of Procurement will be ready to execute. But it is my understanding, unless the user agency has information otherwise, that we have not received that request.
Okay. Mr. Shearbaum, are you still there? Deputy Chief Shearbaum, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. We're checking now on that to ensure that it has been conveyed over for a request.
That's what? That's the second?
That is correct, ma'am. That is correct. It's the desire of the police department to continue that service, and so we will ensure that the documentation has been received. And the Department of Procurement will be ready to execute upon receipt.
All right. I just find it interesting that we're cutting it real close to the edge here, and we've already been behind. This is why we're having to do this, and so why we're cutting it so close to the edge again. All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Nobody? All right. A motion by Mr. Bond. Is there a second?
Second, Winslow.
Second by Ms. Winslow. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Good. I'm going to get out of your way.
Will everyone please vote?
Ms. Winslow, oh, she seconded, so we're okay.
Yes, Madam Chair, the vote is closed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
All right, thank you. We're now at item number 6, and I believe there's an amendment for this particular item. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. If I can read the caption first, and then we can vote to amend.
Thank you.
Yes, this is Ordinance 210-0594. This is an ordinance by Councilmember Destin Hillis to amend Chapter 10, Article 2, Section 10-93 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances so as to provide an exemption from the distance requirements listed in Section 10-88.1 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances for one package store licensed to sell malt beverages, wine, and or distilled spirits at 2251 Marietta Boulevard Northwest and for other purposes. And there is an amendment, Madam Chair, to insert the property legal description as well as to attach a copy of the property description to the legislation.
Make a motion to amend.
Mr. Forrest has made a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a second by Mr. Bond. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you.
The vote is closed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item has been amended.
All right. We're now moved to resolution.
Madam Chair, we have a vote to approve as amended. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Yes. Mr. Hillard.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Shepherd. Just for a little information on this, this is, of course, in my council district, close to the new public shopping center on Marietta Boulevard. The deal here is there is already a package store located on this property, but there has been a lot of changes in the neighborhood recently with other businesses coming in. So to have this and the number of other blighted structures demolished and rebuilt, they would not be abiding by the distance requirements any longer. So has to ensure that this deal can go forward and those blighted structures can be demolished, new businesses built. I've introduced this and I've met with both MPUs, it's within MPUC, but adjacent to MPUD and the two neighborhoods, and everyone is supportive of this. So I would make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Thank you. There has been a motion and a second by Mr. Bond. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair.
Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you.
The vote is opposed. That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hillard. We're now moved to item number 7 under resolutions. Ms. Lindo.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is 21R3727, and this has been substituted. And since the caption changes, if I can have a motion to bring the substitute forward so I can read the changes.
Motion to bring the substitute forward.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Let's vote. Ms. Winslow, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you.
That's 7 yeas, 0 nays. The item has been substituted. Madam Chair, this is 21R3727. This is a resolution by Councilmember Joyce Shepherd requesting the Atlanta Police Department to evaluate the process to facilitate the installation of video surveillance cameras at City of Atlanta Parks and Recreation facilities to help deter criminal activity and for other purposes.
All right. So this is the legislation that I was referencing and talking about earlier, where I'm asking the Parks Department to do an assessment, and the Police Department and the Atlanta Police Foundation to do an assessment of us putting cameras throughout parks that are really much needed to deter crime as best we can in collaboration, hopefully, with us getting some police officers in our parks. But even with that, cameras would absolutely help. So I've asked for a study, and if you heard, Chief Ryan and I talked about it, the Atlanta Police Foundation and Commissioner Darville. So I'm asking for your support and ask for a motion to approve to do this assessment and come back with 6 days. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bond. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open.
All right. Ms. Winslow, how do you vote? In
The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable on substitute.
Thank you. We're now at item number 8, Ms. Lindo.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is a resolution by the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department and Fulton County, Georgia, to apply for and accept a joint 2021 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant from the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance in the amount of $439,088 with no matching funds for the purpose of supporting law enforcement and criminal justice activities and for other purposes.
Are there any questions or is there a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Is there a second? All right, been a second by Ms. Winslow. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
All right, thank you. We're now moved to item number 9, Ms. Lindo.
Madam Chair, that's 21R 3797. That's a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the reemployment of City of Atlanta retiree police investigator Adrian Cattle in the Atlanta Police Department for an annual compensation not to exceed $80,292 pursuant to Section 3-505B of the Charter of the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
All right, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Winslow, second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
All right, we're now at items number 10 and 11, and I believe we can take those together. Is that correct, Lindo?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yeah, these are both authorizing cooperative agreements. And I guess if item number 10, that's 21R 3798, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to enter into cooperative purchase agreement CPG 1210-272 Vehicle Rental Enterprise Leasing Company of Georgia, LLC, utilizing State of Georgia statewide contract listed herein, pursuant to 2-1602, Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code, City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department in an amount not to exceed $100,000 per year. All costs shall be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein. Item number 11, 21R 3799, resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to enter into cooperative purchase agreement CPG 1210-332 with Safeware Inc., utilizing General Services Administration contract number listed herein for the purchase of critical incident tactical gear on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department, pursuant to 2-1602, Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances in an amount not to exceed $200,000 per year, all costs to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. Are there questions? Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Mr. Bond, move approval. Is there a second?
Second, Winslow.
Motion by Ms. Winslow. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are favorable.
All right, we're now on item number 12. Ms. Lindo.
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Resolution 21R 3800, a resolution by the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to execute renewal number 2 of FC 7175 Inmate Dental Services with Quality Plan Administrators, Inc. on behalf of the Department of Corrections for a term of 1 year in an amount not to exceed $130,671.96. All funds shall be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Thank you. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
I'm sorry, we're now at item number 13, Ms. Linda. Could you sound that?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's 21R 3801. This is a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee to amend resolution numbers 21R 3276 and 21R 3277 to authorize payment in the amount of $2,157.03 and $2,000 in settlement of the property damage and bodily injury claims of Glenn Catholic against the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Ms. Winslow, what you want to do a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open, Madam Chair. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We're now at item number 14. Could you sound that?
Chair, this is resolution 21R 3802. This is a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the payment of $375,000, the verdict for personal injury lawsuit and jury verdict against the City of Atlanta in favor of Michelle Davila, arising from a trip and fall over elevated concrete in a sidewalk, and all claims against defendant in the case of Michelle Davila versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein, in the State Court of Fulton County, Georgia, authorizing the verdict to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the verdict amount and for other purposes.
Move approval.
Second, Winslow.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Ms. Winslow. We're ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. We're now moved to items 15 through 21, and I believe we can take those all as a block because these are settlements. Is that correct, Ms. Lindo?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. We're ready.
Item number 15 is 21R 3803. This is a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against defendant in the case of Patricia Surkey versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein, pending in the State Court of Fulton County of Georgia, in the amount of $7,500, authorizing the settlement amount to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount then for other purposes. Item number 16, 21R 3804, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against defendants in the case of Linwood Barber versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein, pending in the State Court of Fulton County of Georgia, in the amount of $15,000, and authorizing said amount to be paid from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes. Item number 17, 21R 3805, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against the City of Atlanta in the case of State Farm Mutual Automobile Insurance Company on behalf of John William Capin versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein in the Fulton County State Court in the amount of $11,500, authorizing said amount to be paid from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the total settlement amount and for other purposes. Item number 18, 21R 3806, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against the City of Atlanta in the case of Jacqueline Clark versus Clarence Rogers in the City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein in the Fulton County State Court, State of Georgia, in the amount of $8,000, authorizing said amount to be paid from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes. Ordinance resolution item number 19, 21R 3807, a A resolution by the Public Safety and Legal Administration authorizing a settlement in the amount, authorizing a settlement of all claims against defendants in the case of previous Hightower versus Richard Blake Powell, civil action file number listed herein, pending United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia in the amount of $28,000, and authorizing settlement amount to be paid from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes. Item number 20, 21R 3808, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration authorizing settlement of all claims against the defendants in the case of Christopher Walker versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein, pending in Magistrate Court of Fulton County of Georgia in the amount of $7,500, and authorizing the settlement amount to be paid to and charged from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes. Item number 21R 3809, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against the defendants in the case of Peter Stewart and Leslie Stewart versus City of Atlanta, civil action file number listed herein, pending in the State Court of Fulton County of Georgia in the amount of $70,000.00, and authorizing the settlement amount to be paid from accounts listed herein, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount for other purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Lindo. I believe that's all we have up under those. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Winslow. You ready for the vote, Ms. Lindo?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7-0 nays. Those items are favorable, Madam Chair.
Okay, Ms. Lindo. I thought we're now at the papers that are held, and I said there was one paper, but I believe there's a paper by Mr. Hillis that he wants to take off of held too. Is that correct? What's that number,
That's
Ms.
correct,
Lindo?
Madam Chair. That's item number 28 on the held agenda.
Can we go ahead and just pull that one and take care of that one also? We'll just go ahead and do that now. So the only thing we have left is this one last paper.
Yes, Madam Chair. That's item number 28 on held, which is 21R 3520. This is an adverse claim for damages alleged to have been sustained due to a flooding on October 10th, 2020 at 1650 Randy Street Northwest in the City of Atlanta.
Mr. Hillis, you want to come forward and talk about this?
Yes, I pulled it off of an agenda a few months ago to speak with the claimant who was a constituent, but conclude those conversations and ready to move forward now.
The original recommendation was to reverse. Is that correct, Mr. Hillis?
Yes, the recommendation from the law department was adverse.
Okay, so, and your recommendation is to support that?
I do not support it, but I would, my colleagues can follow the recommendations of the law department if they so wish, but I'm not going to support adversing the report.
Do you want to give us history again so that we can all remember what happened?
Yeah, so this claim was submitted by the claimants. They claimed that they had basement flooding. They filled out a claim form. And there's some, from my understanding, some disagreements as to the time because the flooding started at nighttime or sometime around midnight. So what I've gathered is the claimant states this was due to this was a sewer flood caused by a sewer. There's a pump station in the area, and Proctor Creek is near the area too. But it just so happens that later and that next day, there was also a significant flooding event on Proctor Creek. But at least according to the claimant, that occurred after the sewer flooding happened. So it seems there's disagreement as to what occurred first and what the issue was behind the flooding.
But I did speak with the law department, and they went over their findings and details. So that's the history of the matter.
All right.
If we're going to start overriding the law, this is Smith. If we're going to start overriding the law department, I've got a whole bunch I'm going to pull back on.
Yeah,
I'm not asking anyone to override the law department. I'm asking them to vote the way they see fit, but I am not voting to support the law department's recommendation.
That's a particular one.
Ms. Smith, yes. What was that, Ms. Smith?
I was asking Councilmember Hill, it's just on this particular one you're going to vote no?
I have done this before, so yes, I'm going to.
Okay. All right.
So can we, Ms. Smith, can I get in and ask the question? Can the law department, can we allow the law department to come and speak about this real quickly, please? Ms. Robinson?
Afternoon, can you all hear me? Yes, good afternoon, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for allowing me to speak during today's meeting. The law department has conducted an extensive investigation into the claim put forth by Ms. Wright concerning this incident, and as a result thereof, we determined that Ms. White was unable to substantiate her claim. And so therefore the claim is being recommended adverse. Of course, after a person receives an adverse decision, or even before, but at this stage of the claim, Ms. White would have the opportunity to file a lawsuit if she is not satisfied with the ultimate decision of the law department in this matter. And so therefore, as this would be considered pending litigation, I will refrain from describing the matter any further in this setting.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. So, Mr. Hillis, you're making a motion to adverse? I mean, to not, I'm sorry, what is your motion?
I'm not making a motion.
Okay, can we get a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion not to accept the law department's recommendation on this particular claim. And I'll tell you why. In my many years of experience of visiting constituents and seeing the results of these types of backups and sewer-related problems in persons' homes, it's very difficult for citizens to match wits with the investigators of our law department. But yet they have to deal with the results of our systems failing. And it is a hardship burden in any incident, in my experience, for a layman to defend itself against our law department during these types of investigations. So I am in sympathy with those who are adversely impacted. And then, of course, if we motion to adverse, something's adverse, it can't be brought back for 2 years, right? And normally, a lot of times on these claims, if someone is adversely impacted, this has to happen to them twice. And so if this happens again within a 2-year period, they can't even bring the claim because it's been adverse by our own rules. It's clear that something happened here. There was an adverse effect on this person's home as it relates to sewer issues, of which we have the legal obligation to maintain. I mean, she didn't make, this property owner didn't make their property back up with sewage on their own. So I just believe in making this person whole. And if that motion fails, I'm not going to vote for this recommendation either. And heard colleagues not do that. But the motion I would make is that the advice of the law department is just that. It's advice. we are the policy making body, and we make the decisions on these claims. I doubt if we get sued if we reject the recommendation of the law department in this issue, because the person will be made whole. So my recommendation is to reject the law department's sense and approve the claim for the claimant.
Excuse me. May I please speak?
This is Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you. I was getting ready to call you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the committee. I think it's necessary to clarify the record on a few things. First, there is no 2-year ban on a person bringing a claim after they've brought a claim. That is not a principle of the law. There's no ban such as that. An adverse of a claim does not strip the claimant's ability to ever recover. It just means that based on the submission of the evidence that the claimant brought forward, they were unable to substantiate the claim. They may be able to do so following the filing of a lawsuit and the instigation of discovery. But this is not a permanent bar to their recovery if, in fact, they are entitled to it. In this particular issue, the allegation was not that there was a sewer backup. The allegation was that there was flooding caused by an alleged malfunction of our pumping station. And, as I stated, the claimant was unable to substantiate that. But it was, just to be clear, not even alleged that there was a sewer backup in this particular matter. And lastly, should this committee vote and the council ultimately vote not to support our adverse recommendation, that would not result in the payment of this particular claim. A separate piece of legislation would need to be brought forth in order to recommend payment of the claim, which, based upon the law department's recommendation, would not be forthcoming not from the law department in any respect. So again, the law department would ask that you support the law department's recommendation to adverse this claim, and thereby freeing the claimant to be able to pursue their allegations against the city through our courts.
Point of order.
All right, Mr. Bond.
Yes, my point of order was I appreciate the always astute advice and counsel of our law department, but my point was to the motion to adverse, not on the procedures surround filing a claim. When the council makes a motion to adverse a piece of legislation, the issue cannot be brought forth within 2 years based upon our own rules as a council. I wasn't speaking towards the ability of someone to sue or to seek other remedies within the law. I was speaking to our procedures as a council. And of course, this legislation does not deal with the payment of course, we would have to introduce another piece of legislation, which would be the appropriate thing to do. So with that, I'm in agreement with the law department. But I still feel that based upon the claim, that still bears some responsibility. That's my belief. And I will not withdraw my motion. People are free to vote it down or support it if they wish. But that's the motion that I have made.
Just briefly, and if I may, with all respect, I would like to clarify that the council does not have a rule that prevents the reconsideration of legislation within any time period after it has been acted upon, as we have seen quite recently in various matters, to include a matter that is on the agenda today that the council has taken action on in which a claim was reconsidered because the lawyer for the claimant withdrew prior to the issuance of the check. And therefore, the council just today voted to reconsider that legislation, which passed earlier this year, in order to address the removal of the attorney.
Point of order. The council had within its rules, and this is something that was often done within our zoning committee, that when an item is adverse, it can be reconsidered. That item can have to be reconsidered for a 2-year period. And that is why the motion of adverse is used in those circumstances.
Okay.
Councilwoman Shepherd, this is Councilmember Hillis. So my speaker button is not working, but I have some additional questions.
Mr. Hillis.
Thank you. So I guess this goes to the law department, Ms. Robinson. The first question is, if you could refresh my memory, what is the total amount of the claim?
Councilmember Hillis, I am looking that up and we'll have that for you shortly.
Okay, unfortunately doesn't show on our agendas what the amounts are.
No, because of the adverse recommendations.
Yeah, the second question is, it's been some time now, but if you recall, I had a conversation with the claimant and had a conversation following that with the law department. And it seemed to me, at least, one of the main points of contention was the date that was submitted on the report. Has the law department followed up any with this claimant to reevaluate that or get the claimant's feedback on that item?
So prior to our discussion, we had a discussion with the claimant concerning the date. And that was what we discussed. Now, during our discussion, a different date, if you recall, was brought up, but that was not the date that was submitted on the original claim form, which is all that can be considered. The amount originally requested was $32,701.97.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I just got a ruling from someone in the Ms. Jack that says what Mr. Baum's referring to in terms of zoning, that's a whole different application than it is in council. Zoning comes up under a different purview in terms of that. So that doesn't apply to what we're referring to in terms of other committees. Zoning has a 24-month because of zoning regulations, but not in terms of other regulations up under the city. Is that correct, Ms. Robinson?
Yes, that is my understanding.
Well, my motion is still.
That is my understanding.
There's obviously something that has happened that is a result of something external to their home. So it's something occurred within the system that we maintain. Now, people don't have to vote on it, right? You don't have to support it, but that's the motion that I've made.
Okay.
And I don't believe that we should add, that's the motion.
Is there a second? And I will not be supporting your motion, but is there a second for anyone who wants to support Mr. Bond's motion?
Second, Hillis.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second to what's the wording, Mr. Bond?
Not to support the adverse recommendation.
All right. Ms. Lindo, we're ready for the vote.
Madam Chair, we're having some technical difficulties. This will have to be a voice vote.
Okay, is the system down now? Or I know we're going to have to drop off before we start our next session, but is the system down at this point?
No, but we're having some, with the IQM2, it's just frozen.
Okay, all right. So we'll just go through voice vote. You want to call it?
So, Madam Chair, the vote will be to adverse, and then if there's no support, then,
No, Mr. Bond
will fail.
Mr. Bond made a motion to...
Oh, to not adverse. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, I was trying to figure out the system here. Yes.
Yes. He made a motion not to adverse. And that was a second by Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
So that is the motion that's before us now, and we will have to get a voice vote. And so I'm saying yes, no to that. Ms. Winslow, how do you vote? Ms. Winslow?
Yes. No.
Ms. Smith?
Nay.
Mr. Karoki?
Nay.
Ms. Boone?
Yes.
Mr. Hillis was a yes. Mr. Bond was a yes. Ms. Winslow?
No, I voted no.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I had Winslow no, Shepherd no, Smith no, Karoki no, Boone yes, Bond yes, Hillis yes. So that's 4 no's and 3 yes. So the motion, the motion dies because we had more no's than we had yeses. So now what we do now is go back and make a motion to support the adverse. Is that correct, Ms. Lindo?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
So I'll make a motion to support the adverse. Is there a second?
Second, Winslow.
All right. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Yay.
Mr. Karoki, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Boone, how do you vote?
Nay.
Mr. Bond, how do you vote?
Nay.
Mr. Hillis, how do you vote?
Nay.
All right. Motion carries. The motion is to adverse was carried. Thank you. So we were now at a point, Ms. Lindo, where we're at the end of everything on the regular agenda. We only have one item left that was held, and that's 21-0-0367, which is the public safety training facility legislation. We have 4 hours and 50 minutes and some seconds on that, but we are recommending right now, because we know that our time is going to time out on us pretty soon now before we can get to the end of this. So what we're going to do at this point is actually ask everyone to sign off, and then we're going to sign back on in how many minutes, Ms. Linda?
About 10 minutes, Madam Chair, and then we will begin. About 5 minutes, and we'll go right into the public comment.
Okay, so what we will do is sign on at 5 o'clock. That's 10 minutes. That will give y'all time to get everything back up. We'll ask everybody, and can you just text us? Well, just say 5 o'clock, everybody sign back in, call back in, drop off the call,
Madam
call
Chair,
back in.
if I may, Madam Chair, excuse me, it's about 5 o'clock now. Should we say 5:10?
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my wrong clock in my house. I'm sorry. It's 5:08, so 5:10. That's right. No, I'm sorry. It's 5. What time is it now? Okay. 5:45. 5:45, Ms. Lindo.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. It's about 5:04. So if we say 10 minutes, 5:15, do we want to just say 5:15 just to keep it?
You're right.
5:04. Yeah.
I don't have my glasses on, and I'm kind of blind right now, so I'm putting on my glasses so I can see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
Madam
that's
Chair.
fine.
So we'll go right into the public comments at 5:15.
All right. And what about our system, Ms. Lindo? We don't have to log back on and log back on our system. Is it going to come back up automatically? Or you'll let us know later?
Yes. We're going to reboot everything. Yes.
Okay.
And so when we get back, yes.
Okay.
Can we hang up here?
I'm sorry?
Can we hang up here on the phone?
Yes.
Hang up,
please. Yeah.
Call back in at 5:15.
We redo everything. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.